Thrill Me.
This show is part of the Thrill Me Podcast Network. Experience more on Facebook and YouTube.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hockey Show Podcast. We didn't vanish. No, life just got in the way. And then the season started, and now we're here. I'm Nick.
I'm John. Nick, can I see your phone?
No, you cannot see my phone.
I need to see your phone. See, I'm going to use it to pull up some pictures here so that we can talk about your family, and this is clearly the only accessible way.
No, that's just not going to happen. I'm not youngin' like that. I'm not a kid. I'm not going to allow you to look at my phone. All right.
Yeah, but there's a power dynamic here where you maybe wouldn't feel comfortable telling me no for something like that, even if you may not have something on your phone that's all that incriminating or uncomfortable to have out in front of somebody. I've got to have.
No, you're just not going to see my phone unless you want to see a whole bunch of male nudity. So obviously we'll talk about that at some point. That little joke right there that I'm sure you know of. But yeah, dude, it's John. It's nice to see you, talk to you again about hockey. The 2023-24 season's here, man.
And it has been getting off to a fun start where we're not having to be too angry about too much. It's the honeymoon phase of the season, I think. You know, there hasn't been a whole bunch of boneheaded injuries. The NHL is kind of already stepping on its own feet and making us angry there. But I did get to see the yearly tradition of the Red Wings coming to town to see me last night, and also playing against the Columbus Blue Jackets.
You've already been to a hockey game this year. There's only been some teams have only played one game, and you've already seen the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets play.
Okay, so before I dive into the game, something that I think either your household especially will really like, or we can acknowledge that this might be a little dangerous. They have Twisted Tea on tap at Nationwide.
Okay, so Twisted Tea, not my cup of tea, no pun intended, but my wife loves Twisted Tea. And actually, here's a fun thing to do. Get a Twisted Tea and get a flavored Bacardi shot and put that in the Twisted Tea.
Oh, yeah, I should not have
trust
learned
me,
that.
the minute the wife learned that, I got very, very happy. I was like, yeah, can we order another one now?
Dude, I was at the point where Detroit was up 4-0 going into the third period. I'm like, if they score a fifth goal, I'm taking my shirt off. Boy. I don't even care. But yeah, that really added to the experience. I was in the lower bowl behind the net that Detroit was shooting on twice. So ideal positioning where, if you're up high enough, you can see what's happening at the other end of the ice without anything really getting in the way. And yeah, they're playing like men possessed right now. And that made me happy to see.
Detroit's off to a pretty good start. Could be a little overreaction here coming up, but I'm happy you got to go. I will say, I want to put it on the record. I have gotten the approval. We're going to be back up in New York for Thanksgiving. And I have gotten the approval that is Saturday of that weekend. If I purchase tickets, the wife will go see the Rangers take on the Boston Bruins with me at Madison Square Garden. And it will be the first time I've been to MSG because I've only been seeing the Rangers on road games in Carolina and Washington over the last however long. To put it this way, the last time I went to MSG, there was no renovation. And Marian Gaborik was still a New York Ranger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was against the Buffalo Sabres, and the Rangers lost. Go figure.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun game to see. And that matinee game that the Bruins and the Rangers always seem to play right after Thanksgiving is a really fun time. So that's gonna be really cool. I am looking forward to.
Yeah, I just need to get certain monies, and once I get certain monies, I'm gonna make the purchase. I'm gonna make the purchase on them tickets, and then that to brag a little bit about that Thanksgiving weekend is gonna be Thanksgiving with the folks back on Long Island, New York City. Yeah,
Northern New Jersey.
New York City for Broadway to see Wicked on Black Friday. and then back into the city to not leave Penn Station and just walk up some stairs to the Garden to see a hockey game.
Well, you're flexing a little.
Trying, you know.
I love to see it.
Listen, I'm a theater guy and I'm a hockey guy, right? So I get a little bit of both, okay?
I haven't seen Wicked, but I think I would go see Al Qaeda if they were performing.
I think that's extreme. Again, no pun intended.
No, maybe not the. That's my go-to for something that's widely hated, and that's maybe not the best reference to make for New York City.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. They did not fix it in post.
No, you won't.
All right, so let's get into it. We are back. There's a lot to get to. We'll talk the last week. We'll talk some of the things we've noticed. But since we didn't get to do a whole season preview with everything, I thought let's kind of do not rapid fire, but as quickly as we can. Let's run through some of these things. Let's kind of throw out some of what we think is going to happen. Like, for instance, is there a team that you think could surprise this year? Maybe not, make the playoffs, but one of those bottom dwellers. Like, I have San Jose as my worst team this year, but I think the Coyotes, I think the Yotes could be a team that's going to be fun to watch and could end up somewhere in the middle of the pack by the end of the year.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for the Coyotes this year in the sense that this seemed like the first time in 3 or 4 years that they actually, tried to put together a NHL caliber team. So I'm excited for the fans in Arizona that'll get a chance to, see. I mean, Logan Cooley by himself is going to be worth the price of admission. And you saw they went out. Yeah, and they still have Clayton Keller. They went out and added Matt Dumba. They're clearly working on building something. Don't look at who their goaltender is if you want to feel good about them. But outside of that, yeah, they are gonna have an opportunity there. I really kind of like what Nashville put together this offseason too. They moved a lot of people, but then they bring in Ryan O'Reilly. They add some depth scoring with Gustav Nyquist. Andrew Burnett's going to be taking over as coach. They are not off to a great start, winning 1 of 3 so far here. But outside of that, in their defense, they did play like Tampa and I think it was Boston was their other game, and their next game's against the Oilers, so fingers crossed. But yeah, I think as the season goes on, Nashville might challenge for a playoff spot, but won't be as easily dismissed as
I mean, to be fair, Nashville was kind of lingering around even when they made the massive sell-off last year. They lingered there for a while where it felt unrealistic that they would make the push, but at the same time they were close enough that it was like, well, if they string a few things together and weirder things have happened in all of sports, not just hockey, but just in general. So, that's there's something to be said for Nashville for sure. But yeah, I think also with the Coyotes, the one thing they have going for them, they really like their coach.
Yeah, it's something you couldn't say about a team like Columbus necessarily, who I think the impact Adam Fantilli is going to have on this team cannot be exaggerated. And having Zach Werenski healthy for the season will probably have a big impact for them as well. But yeah, I don't have a ton of faith in Columbus's goaltending. Last night they started Spencer Martin, who played like almost 30 games for Vancouver last year. And so when you're not good enough to be in Vancouver's goaltending situation, that probably tells you a lot.
It does. So who do you think I said I have the Sharks being the worst team this year just because, I mean, that's a team that didn't even they subtracted in the offseason by moving Carlson. Who do you have as like the worst team this year? Who do you think is going to bottom out?
Yeah, the smart money's on the Sharks, but for the sake of being different, boy, Philadelphia did not make an effort to improve at all this last year. And I don't know if they'll be as bad as San Jose, but I think it would be insane to see them as anything but bottom 5.
Gotcha. All right. What teams I want to ask, who do you think is going to make the playoffs? But I'm trying to think of a better way of that. Like, because, like, for the most part, we know, like, oh, Boston's going to make it. The Hurricanes are going to make it. The Devils are going to make it. Toronto's going to make it. Well, all right, maybe not. So, all right, I guess, do you want to throw down who you think is going to make the playoffs? Because I have my breakdowns of no specific order. Like, I just have my who's going to be top 3 in Atlantic.
Yeah, let's do
and then wild cards.
Yeah, let's do no specific order for it. Although, as I say that, the Atlantic Division is Toronto's to lose at this point. Right?
I actually figured it would have been. I mean, safe money would say the Bruins are not going to have a year like they did last year, but I still want to throw the Bruins. Like, I don't know. Even if they have a fall off from last year, I'm like, is that still the number 1 team out of the Atlantic? Maybe. Like, that's still a good team. It's not a bad team. It's still a good team.
And any team that can throw out Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak is going to have a chance. But your top setters are Pavel Zacha and That's going to be a pretty sizable hole. But still has Charlie McAvoy, still has Jeremy Swayman, still has Linus Ullmark. So I am not at the point where I'm going to say the Bruins are going to drop all the way out of the playoffs, but they are going to be much closer to being a bubble team than they have been in recent history.
I think that might be the hot take right there, because I think the Bruins, Toronto, and I'll even say the Lightning are going to be locks to take those top 3 spots.
I'm right there with you. I think the division is Toronto's to lose. As you may have heard me say once, like 5 seconds ago. But yeah, for the Lightning, having Vasilevsky out for a while is not going to help things, and they had another injury that we'll get to here in a minute. But there's still so much talent on that team and so much experience, especially, that I still think I would still have a very hard time picturing them not making the playoffs. But yeah, those are definitely the strong 3 that you will have to contend with if you're trying to go somewhere in the
and you mentioned the Vasilevsky injury. Like, that's going to impact the Lightning for sure, and you don't know what you're going to get when he returns. But you said it, the talent is just, that team just runs so deep that when you're like, oh man, and then you're like, oh wait, they have Hedman, they have, Stamkos, it just keeps going on and on and on. The talent there is just so good. But I figured those were the top 3 out of the Atlantic. My Metro, I figured Hurricanes, Devils, Rangers were going to be the top 3 again.
Yeah, you saw Pittsburgh really kind of tweak things a little bit, and I'm excited to see what they have, but I can't in good faith put them ahead of those 3. There's just that the Rangers, Devils, Hurricanes just have too much going for them. And considering that the Hurricanes went to the conference finals without Andrei Svechnikov on that team, that they definitely seem like they're poised to really have a run at it again. The Devils have so much talent that has some actual experience now that you want to see if they're going to take that next step with things. And then the Rangers, you almost had addition by subtraction.
Yeah, it's very, that team is very, you know what you're getting in the goaltending. You know what they are. They're a goalie first team. Although what they've looked like the past, the first 3 games, it does look like that. If we want to overreact, well, we'll save that. I'll save that. You know what? I'll hold off on that. So those were my top 3 out of the Metropolitan. But then I had, for the wild cards, I had the Panthers getting in, but then I had the bubble for that final spot being the Penguins or the Islanders, because I could see the Penguins getting back in with the Erik Karlsson addition and being able to sneak their way in. I mean, hell, they were, if they didn't lose to the Chicago on that last game, they were in. One game, they were in.
Yeah.
So I've got those 2 teams, again, kind of battling it out for that A spot, and I just think the Penguins, I think they do get it. I think Karlsson does help them become that, we got back in, but I don't think they're a real deep threat. I think the Islanders would be more of a threat in the postseason.
Well, I don't know that the Islanders are going to make the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, I do not have them in the playoffs,
because
so I know the Islander fans that listen are not going to be happy with me on that, but
I mean, they were kind of marginal to last year for the playoffs, and then they didn't really do anything except everyone got a year older. So on what, as we covered, is already a pretty significant age team by NHL standards. So yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in the Islanders putting something together this year. I think we definitely can't sleep on the Capitals, though. With they had, granted, you know, there wasn't a ton of drastic changes for them last year, but last year they spent a lot of time without John Carlson, and I don't know if having John Carlson around would have made the difference between playoffs and no playoffs. But if he's able to stay healthy this year, that's going to give me a lot of hesitation to write them off.
It does. That's a top defenseman, and yeah, that was kind of a knock. I would say a fair knock on the Capitals last year was they had a lot of key injuries throughout most of the season. Guys that were, you know, eat up those 25-30 minutes of ice time a night weren't there. I don't know. I think it was, I think there's so much talent, and I think with the emergence of the Devils being a consistent threat, and the Islanders having, you know, Sorokin and net, it means that they're going to steal more games than they should as well. I just don't think the Capitals, I think they're another team that got older as well. They are like the oldest team now, right? So yeah. That's a team that just got older as well. I still think the Capitals thing is that they're going to be decent. They'll be a middle of the pack team, but they'll probably fall somewhere, I think, around like 10th this year out of the East.
Yeah, and taking up another spot there, I think Buffalo takes a step forward to take the playoffs over Florida.
Okay, so you think Buffalo is above Florida? Gotcha.
Well, and there's so much to say about what happened with Florida last year. Obviously, once they got in, they were electric, but they made the playoffs because Chicago beat Pittsburgh. They have taken a step back talent-wise because Radko Gudas was a huge part of that team. He's no longer there. Carter Verhaeghe, I believe, is no longer there. Brandon Montour's hurt. Aaron Ekblad's hurt. Spencer Knight's coming back in. Hopefully everything goes really well for him. But there's so much that's up in the air for a team that was marginal to begin with. They would need a lot of things to go really right for them to maintain or improve on last year. I just don't see it happening.
I think Buffalo is a team that could take a step forward. Ottawa is another team that I could see kind of being in the mix and maybe land above the Capitals in the standings this year. The addition of Tarasenko, like they went out, they made some good moves. We know what they did last year at the deadline or close to the deadline as well. So that's a team that is definitely making a push to try and compete. I guess a good question is, where do you put your Red Wings? Because honestly, out of those three,
7th.
I was going to say, out of those three, I feel like the Red Wings are the one that kind of seem to just kind of be stagnant.
Yeah, the Red Wings do not have any rookies or sophomores on their team this year. So I feel like that gives you a very good idea of what to expect out of this team. It's possible they make the playoffs, but we're talking like less than 5% chance. They need a lot of things to go right, and they need things to go really wrong for three teams ahead of them. So I like the way Ottawa's positioned. I think Buffalo, it was so close last year, you might as well just give them the tap in to get into the playoffs here. I would see Ottawa making some noise, but man, you roll out goaltenders of Jonas Corposalo and Anton Forsberg, and I am not going to be comfortable with that under any circumstances.
Witness Corposalo up close and personal.
I sure did. That's part of why I feel that way. And it's weird because I feel like as he gets discussed as he's this, younger goalie that's never really had a opportunity in front of him. It's like, yeah, but he's 29.
He's not young anymore.
So, yeah, so he may, through no fault of his own, spent time on teams that were exclusively tire fires. But if you're expecting a late career renaissance from him, I don't know what to tell you.
All right, so I think we've got everybody that we think could be a playoff contender and is going to make the playoffs from the east side of things. Let's move over to the other divisions. Central, I feel like it's Avs, Stars, and Wild.
Absolutely.
And then really quickly, Pacific, I have Vegas, Edmonton, and the Kings.
I would maybe put Vancouver in over the Kings.
Okay. See, I have Vancouver more as I feel like they sneak in as a wild card team, that they're like that bubble fight.
Definitely possible. But the Kings are changed a lot this offseason. So that they are going to be, they're a team to keep an eye on. I'm just not certain what direction they're going to go with it. I could see them not really clicking and taking a step back, and I could see them having the missing piece of the puzzle and challenging the Golden Knights. It really could go either way for them. But similar to Ottawa, boy, that goaltending makes you hesitate.
It does. But I feel like everybody these days is banking on the Vegas model of, we're going to, roll out two mediocre goalies, or hope that we have two mediocre goalies and one of them rides us, to a win and to the promised land and all of that good stuff.
You need someone that's good enough, not Vezina trophy like that.
And there might be something to be said for that when you take a look at teams like, the Rangers and the Islanders, who rely so heavily on their goaltending. But then I could even say the Lightning, rely on a consistent, somebody that's going to get 60 starts in a year, 60 plus starts, and your backup's only playing 20 games. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I just, LA, there's just kind of that something with it. And none of the other teams, like I have the Jets, Seattle, Canucks, or the Flames all as wildcard teams. Because none of them, like, the Pacific to me just feels like it's a runaway with Vegas and Edmonton every year. Like those, we know they're going to be that's your battle. That's your 1 and 2. And logic would say you can't pick Vegas to be the one in that situation. So it would be Edmonton to run away with it. But really outside of those two in the Pacific and outside of the Avs and the Stars and the Wild, I'm just like, it really is like a wild, wild west out there.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anybody actively
and
tanking.
I feel like there's...
Like, you have bad teams. You have the Sharks and the Ducks. They're bad. But nobody else is really, like, actively tanking that I can, like, off the top of my head, I can think of.
Yeah, and I feel like there's been just enough tweaked that just about anyone maybe outside of Chicago and Arizona, I could see really doing something in the Central too. Like I just mentioned, I have good feelings about Nashville, but like St. Louis,
they're not a bad team.
Horrible. Yeah. If you saw Seattle tweaking a few things around the edge, Matty Beniers takes a big step forward. You could see them maybe making some noise in that division. Calgary's been banking on Jonathan Huberdeau, just need a year to get adjusted to that system out there, and he's going to have a whole different coach around this year, so maybe the Flames could jump in there and take that spot. There's a lot that could happen with the West, and it's going to be a little chaotic, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. That is kind of like last year. I feel like that's where we're going to get a lot of the excitement from. That's where we're going to get a lot of drama. Everything else like the Atlantic and the Metropolitan feels pretty locked up. It's kind of people battling for the wild card where I'm like, somebody, who's battling for that third spot in the Pacific? Who's battling for those wild card spots? what's going to be the positioning of the Central? Like, there's a lot to be excited for out of those divisions, and it's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a fun year. So
For sure.
now I got to know
For
final thing before we move on. Cup final. Who do you got?
I like Colorado out of the West, especially if they're able to get Landeskog back for an extended period of time. And out of the East, it's hard for me to bet against New Jersey. A team that really looked elite and then went out and added Tyler Toffoli. I'm going to go ahead and take
you've been bringing up the goalie situation the whole time. You really trust that goalie situation?
Yeah, maybe they add someone at the deadline.
Well, they could always add that goalie out of Winnipeg.
Connor Hellebuck.
Maybe not anymore. Who knows?
Maybe not.
All right, so you've got that's you got the Devils and the Avs. Okay. Yes. I have taken out of the West the Stars of Dallas, and out of the
that's who I had last year.
I like them this year. I honestly, I'm sold on them this year because of how good they did last year, how far they went. I feel like that's a team that's ready to. When I look at all those other teams, Vegas, I don't think is going to be able to repeat. They're not built like the Lightning where they're going to be able to get back to a cup final year after year after year. They'll be damn good and competitive, but I think it catches up to them.
Oh, yeah.
Edmonton's is the other one that I think is really could be poised to make that run. But I just felt like if it came down to Stars and Edmonton at any point, I think the Stars are able to shut down the Oilers. And out of the East, I have the Bruins of Boston making up from last year's President Trophy winner. They're not going to be President Trophy winners this year. We kind of are like, all right, whatever, and they just find their way to grind it out to that cup final. But I do have the Dallas Stars winning their second Stanley Cup. No controversy this time.
Yeah, I could see a big narrative for Boston really taking shape in the sense of, when Bergeron and Krejci left, no one believed in us because, every athlete has to make themselves out to be
they're totally the underdogs, man. You just said it. They lost their 2 Hall of Fame players.
Yeah, nobody believed in us, and here we were able to put all this together and prove the haters wrong.
Yeah, we still have the defending Vezina. We still have 2 defensemen that get Norris Trophy votes. We're still pretty stacked.
Yeah. Yeah, so that might be something that really takes shape there. It is Boston. That's something to keep an eye on.
I mean, we'll see. It's our 3 games into the season for some teams, 1 in the season for others predictions.
Yeah. Now I will notice neither one of us picked Edmonton out of the West.
No, that's kind of a first. I feel like typically every year, even before we ever started redoing the show, we've kind of always been like, oh man, Edmonton. I mean, look at that team with Draisaitl and McDavid. But I don't know if I buy it at this point this year. I don't know. There's just something about the feeling this year that I was like, thinking out how possibilities could play, I just really like the Dallas Stars.
And last year, everyone and their mother was picking Boston even before they went through the entire league like a buzzsaw and had a record-setting season. So for that to happen when I started to see everyone picking Edmonton, I said to myself, okay, it can't be Edmonton.
Yeah, once you kind of become the true hands-on favorite, it's probably not going to happen, man. Probably not going to happen. All right, so now that we've gotten through all of that, it has been the first week is over. We have seen the ups and the downs of the start of the season, and it's time for overreaction, man. I can't believe the Edmonton Oilers, while I picked them to be a playoff team, are already on the verge of being eliminated.
Yeah, they start the season off against Vancouver twice. They drop games to Vancouver twice. It's hard to imagine dropping 8 goals on the road in your first game for the season and not hitting the panic button. The conventional wisdom would tell you that you want to slow roll it. You don't want to overreact too much to one game. But right now there is precisely 0 other teams in the Pacific sitting there with 0 points. They're playing the Predators tonight. We'll see how that works for them. But
I have them on.
Yeah. Oh shoot, they are. They are.
I have them on right now. Yeah, I'm watching them. I got them all on record.
Oh, I thought you were exaggerating.
Power play.
Draisaitl.
Pretty back and forth. The down low behind the net. He's just sitting there right in the slot, ready to bury it. So, even when we record the show, we've got hockey on. And as you can see, I'm watching Edmonton, Nashville. So you can't say I'm a fan. I have my fandom.
We have brain disease.
I just love hockey. I just love watching hockey. But that's the thing. I've been watching a few of with the games back, obviously, I've been watching a few of them. And like if we're to have those overreactions, yes, you could hit the panic button if you're Edmonton, but you shouldn't. There's no reason to. It's 3 games into the season. You're okay. You're fine.
You don't want to hit the panic button if you're Buffalo right now?
No, you don't. You don't. I think Buffalo, got off to a start. They played the Rangers for their home opener, and that's, Buffalo is more of a bubble team and the Rangers are more of a playoff team. But when I say that, then the Rangers go out and proceed to see Igor Shesterkin yanked from a game and giving up 5 goals to the Blue Jackets. And it's like, what the hell just happened there? But then they go out and they play another game against the Yotes, and you're like, well, listen up, man. I mean, this team is totally going to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, the Buffalo is the other winless team as we speak. They're up 2-0 on Tampa, so they might have put something together here. But starting the year off with losses to the Rangers and Islanders back to back, never a good
No. It's not the way you want to start the season. But here's the real thing. I mean, these first 10 games of the season are still, in my opinion, for some teams and certain teams, you're coming out of the preseason gates. A lot of these guys weren't playing the preseason or full games. Guys like, you're not rolling out Sidney Crosby every single preseason game. You're not rolling out Ovechkin every preseason game. You're just not. They're not going to play their 20 minutes of ice time. So some of these guys are still, just getting accustomed to the season being back. Now, you don't want to be giving up points. You don't want to be, blowing games that you have the leads to. Looking at opening night with Chicago, you don't want to be doing things like that. That's not a good way to start the season. But overall, I see it as like going through those first 10 games, and you want to be around 500. If you're like 4-6, okay. If you're 5-5, okay. If you're above 500, that's great. But those first 10 games to me are where you kind of know what your team is, who the workers are. You can kind of start figuring it out from that point.
And that's why it's usually Thanksgiving before anyone can really get a good idea what they have with the team. And everyone's fresh out of the gate, and everyone's, especially younger guys, are going full pedal to the metal, not having a good idea of what an entire toll the NHL season takes on you. So it can be rough. It can be rough. And you could, hey, last year around Thanksgiving, we had the Red Wings comfortably in a playoff spot, and they didn't finish the year anywhere
which is
close
wild because what is it again? Usually, what's the percentage? It's a crazy percentage of if you find yourselves in a playoff position at the Thanksgiving. Yeah,
it's like 70,
something like that.
It's
very high odds that you're going to be a playoff team. But you're right. Things can change. Now, what I do want to say though is, I don't know if this is an overreaction or if this is just fact. Austin Matthews is a fucking beast, and that dude is going to easily break 100 points this year and score 50 plus goals.
Austin Matthews opening the year with back-to-back hat tricks.
Oh boy, do I wish I fucking had bet on him on. I didn't even have him for an anytime goal scorer in my parlay. I was like, oh my gosh.
Did you bet on him for having a third hat trick in a row? Because I don't think
No, I did not. I wasn't that guy. I wasn't like, well, he did it twice. Clearly he's going to score 4 now.
Now, we'll say this. Matthews is the 5th player to ever open the season with back-to-back hat tricks. Can you tell me any of the
Mario
other 4?
Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Jaromir Jagr.
No.
Pat Verbeek.
They all revolve around the 17-18 season. First, most recent player to do it, Alexander Ovechkin. The next one to do it was Cy Denis. Did it in the 17-18 year. Joe Malone also did it.
Yeah, good old Joe Malone.
Oh, by the way, for these other ones, we're talking 1917-18. I left that part out. That was my mistake. Joe Malone and Rag Nabel.
Ragnable?
All did it. Yeah, all did it in 1917-18. Which, what the heck kind of season was that to have 3 people open it with?
I mean, 17-18, like, what? Come on. Like, the goalies didn't even, like, wear pants at that point.
I'll take you one further. You know what? One crucial part of hockey had not been introduced in the 17-18 season.
What?
The forward pass.
Oh wow!
Back then, if they didn't institute it until the 18-19 season, at that point, if after you crossed the blue line, you could only send it back.
So it was like field hockey back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know why, but yeah.
I mean, at one point, the forward pass wasn't invented in football as well.
Yeah, and the helmets were made of leather.
Oh man, good old leatherheads. That's what we need to bring back. All right, is there anything else from this first week that you want to kind of like jump at or that jumped out at you? I mentioned the Matthews thing. That was pretty cool. The first goals, actually, I guess, right? Maybe.
The first Bedard goals for
Bedard and Fantilli, right?
Yeah. It's scoring on a wraparound on the reigning Vezina Trophy winner could be a good sign of things to come.
I think those are some good picks. You mentioned it actually with Columbus. I think Fantilli is going to play a pretty big factor in maybe making them think progression is a little bit more forward than it actually is.
Yeah, and here we are completely overlooking Leo Wilson in Anaheim, who's already their top. He's their top line center already. That took a long time. But yeah, we'll see how that all ends up playing out with it. But when your star rookie can get the new face of the NHL apparently can get their first goal that quickly, that's going to do nothing but help the sport.
That was pretty cool. And Bedard's first goal was really and that first game with him, there's that kid's those are 2 picks. It's actually kind of frustrating as a Rangers fan because those are 2 picks that I look at and I'm like,
now
first round exactly. I'm like, what interesting. I have 2 of them that I'm sitting here and I'm like, I mean, it's year 3, man, and he's finally getting top 6 minutes. And he did open up the scoring for them actually for this season too, Lafreniere, which is hysterical.
Let me double check.
So I found it
because I have something that's probably going to be really good for your multiple game parlays. Connor Bedard has played 4 games. They have resulted in 5 shots, 6 shots, 5 shots, and 4 shots. If there is an over-under for shots by Connor Bedard in a game, smash the over on that, because he looks like he is shooting like Ovechkin style, to where like he finishes like 100 shots ahead of second place for the number of shots taken for the year. I would not be surprised to see that continue for the entire
I'm sure
season.
it will. I mean, he's everything for them. He's first line setter, first power play setter. Like, he's everything for them. So yeah, I definitely will now be adding 4+ shots in a game to the parlays for anytime goal scorers and stuff. Like, just an easy way to keep getting that money. Make a $1 bet and win a few $100. You know, you got to parlay it, man. Parlay it. Parlay that dollar.
How many times has it worked?
And I made I made something like $100 off of that one. So, you know, it
Nice.
works. Well, but then you have a night like the other night with the baseball game where I ended up all I needed was one guy on Arizona to get on base one more time. He got on base in the first inning. He had 3 more plate appearances. He just needed to walk or get hit by a pitch. He didn't. And it was the only thing that didn't hit on my parlay for like $230. I was like, wow. But also an old roommate of ours missed on his $1,000+ parlay because in the football game, one person did not make 3 catches in the game. Every other thing hit except for one guy catching footballs. So I had sent him a message right like about 20 minutes prior. It was like, fuck. And then he sent me one and he was like, fuck. I was like, yep. We both felt one player short.
We'll have to make that a segment. I'll ask you. I'll get your referral bonus for whatever you're using, and we'll see.
I'll give you some hockey parlays and see if anything hits. Listen, I just think it's fun. It's stupid. It's fucking. If you have a little bit of disposable income, go for it. But if you have a gambling addiction, don't. All right.
Even if you don't have the addiction,
you would. But I say, hey, help fund the economy a little bit.
We do have a responsibility to do that. $1.
There's a recession, guys. Right? Something like that. Inflation, all of that. So yeah, why not? You never know. Maybe hit $1,000. All right. Do you want to move on to some of the other like injuries and extensions and stuff like that?
Okay. Yeah. Let's start with the injuries, because despite the season being so young, there's definitely been some pretty significant ones.
All right. I actually do not have the injury list in front of me. I have extensions.
I got it. I'll lead you off here. First one. Steven Stamkos. He is currently missing his 2nd consecutive game with a lower body injury after blocking a shot against Detroit. Especially significant for him because you might remember there was some contentious contract talk
he doesn't have one
at the beginning of the year. Yeah, and apparently that's just completely outrageous for a player in his 30s that scores pretty consistently, but does not stay healthy very consistently. So, he was, very butthurt that they hadn't started the process with him or talked to him enough yet. And the GM just kind of said, we're not going to, worry about this too much in season. We're going to see what we have at the end of it, because they probably didn't get to where they are by signing 33-year-olds to long-term deals. And here he goes getting injured again. And this could be pretty disastrous for his next deal if the GM gets to say, remember when you were out the beginning of the season and we did just fine without you? Which hasn't been the Lightning's case just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it came to fruition for them. So that's going to hurt for them. Chris Tanev out of Seattle. He is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with an undisclosed injury. Not a player that the entire world revolves around in Chris Tanev, unless you're having a look at his yearly team photos and the pose that he likes to do with his eyes and that bizarre situation. But for a team like Seattle, the bigger ends of their strategy of having 4 different second lines, If he misses significant time, that's going to be difficult for them to stomach in that situation. Although it does maybe mean Tyler Wright will get a chance to play. We'll see. Kirby Duff out.
I did see
Montreal.
this one. That's a big one. Considering
it doesn't. I didn't see what the injury was specifically. They just said significant time for him. And you feel for this guy. He got drafted by Chicago. He got injured a bunch there. He didn't really get a chance to shine. Gets traded. This could have been a really big year for him to settle in and really shine in Martin St. Louis' system. And for him to be out, quote unquote, significant time is a pretty tough blow. And the last one that I had was Victor Arvidsson for the LA Kings. Looks like he is going to need more back surgery. He had one in the spring of 22 that kept him out of the playoffs. He stuck around through everything for the 22-23 season for the Kings, but unfortunately, it looks like he may be headed right back to the surgeon's table there. And when you start to have a lot of those pile up, there's a lot more athletes that don't bounce back from those than do, I would say. So anytime someone's having any kind of back surgery,
it's a red flag.
In general, and that makes you nervous just because you want to be sure someone's going to get to play with their kids at the end of their career, or be able to walk around pain-free. So multiple back surgeries, I definitely hope that's going to work out for him. He's a really significant part of LA, especially on the penalty kill.
Yeah. Those are some pretty, early on ones, early in the season, you hope that they can figure it out. But yeah, like you mentioned in LA, a back injury, that's a big one. The Kirby one, that one, I don't know why that one bugs me so much. I think because I actually really kind of like him as a player. So I've been very frustrated at the fact that I can't get to see what I think he's really capable of, which is I think he can be a really good player and a really impactful player for a team. So it's getting kind of frustrating where it's like, is this going to be your career? Kind of a lot of on the ice, off the ice.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating just because for all as much as he's been around in the league for a few years now, I don't feel like we've gotten enough of a chance to really see what's there.
No consistency to being able to go, this is the type of player it is. It's like, we start to see it and then he's out. Yeah.
And so he got drafted in 2019, and between COVID and injuries, it has how many games has this guy played?
Okay, I was going to ask if he even played 2 full seasons, so I guess he kind of has.
Yeah, and about 2.5 at this point. But man, it is just been been rough.
It's been a tough go of it for him. And then with Stamkos, I mean, I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about the Lightning. Like, you would hope he could stay healthy, but that team is just so deep to begin with already. Oh my God, dude. The goal that Connor McDavid just scored to make it 4-0 was, I'm sorry, I know that's very distracted for the podcast listener right now, but holy shit. That was Connor McDavid being Connor McDavid right there. Just, oh my gosh. He pretty much got tripped up and just picked up the puck and scored.
Breaking big news on the podcast here. Connor McDavid scored.
Connor McDavid did a cool thing. Connor McDavid got tripped up, just kind of glided on the ice, picked up the puck, and was like, I'm just going to take this and score. I'm just going to score now. I'm just going to do this thing I do a lot of. I tend to do like 60 of these a year. It's kind of my thing. So, yeah, that got me distracted. But the Stamkos thing, it's also why he doesn't have a contract extension. Let's be real. He can throw a fit all he wants, and I get why he is, but we can quickly talk that contract extension because I do have some of the contract extensions that have come out since, so we'll kind of talk a little bit about those. But to talk about him for a second, I know he wants an extension, but he also needs to understand that there's no rush to get an extension done. I don't know why he sees it as a slight against him as well that they haven't offered him a new contract. There's nothing saying that, oh, we need to offer Steven Stamkos a new contract before the year begins. Like, you're under contract. You're good. And the cap's going to go up next year. So what? I don't know. I don't get it. I get where Tampa's coming from. I really don't get Stamkos and his camp.
Yeah, and because part of that's going to be on your agent anyway. But remember when they won it all in the 1920 year, he played one game that entire playoff. And even then he played like one shift. Granted, he scored a goal on said shift, so I can't be mad at that. But it's just a way to hammer home that as much as he's the captain, he's maybe not as essential for that Lightning team as he has been made out.
Also, I don't have their cap friendly in front of me, hint, but I feel like they're in a weird, just letting you know, John. But I feel like they're already in a tight cap situation with the Braden Point contract. I feel like Hedman is either locked up or he is 2 years. He might be 2 years away from a contract extension. So you're getting to that weird point where I don't want to be saying, oh, if you're the Lightning, you got to look to move Steven Stamkos. You don't want to move Steven Stamkos. You obviously want to make that work and keep him there. But you might have to start looking at the priority of guys like Victor Hedman and others.
Yeah, and here's where they after this season, Stamkos will be a UFA. They will have 3 more years of Kucherov. They will have one more season of Victor Hedman, and their red arrow contracts at this point include Braden Point at 9.5. Anthony Cirelli at 6.2. Tanner, what? No, not Tanner Janot. I was going to say, what on earth? Nick Paul at 3.1 with a no trade clause. I don't know what
it's very Barclay Goudreau.
Brendan Hagel. Yeah. Hey, who?
Yeah,
had him
exactly.
Brendan Hagel has a $6.5 million extension that kicks in next year. And then on defense, you have Mikhail Sergachev and Eric Cernak. They're both red arrows. So, there's probably not that much more to go around at this point.
Although I don't know if you've heard this, John, the cap is going up in the future.
It is, and they're banking on that happening at the end of this season. But we also started last year talking a lot about that, how the cap would go up, and it didn't. So we'll kind of see what comes of this. But if Stamkos got offered like a 4-year, $4 million each contract, then I would see the reason to be upset about that. But it seems like it seemed to me like he was mad they haven't signed him until
it came across weird. Again, it could have been actually it came more from him. So I was like, it could have been his camp trying and drum up, but it was more him trying to drum it up. So I don't know. Listen, do I think that Steven Stamkos is not going to be a Tampa Bay Lightning after his contract expires? No. There's no part of me that believes Steven Stamkos is playing for another team ever in his career. And the Lightning will find a way to make it work, even though it's going to really, I think a Stamkos extension puts them in a spot where, like, it is that weird loyalty over what's best for the future. Because his next contract is more, in my opinion, would be more of this is a loyalty one. This is a make sure that you're a Lightning to the end of your career, like Alex Ovechkin, as opposed to doing that, the injuries, the price.
Boy, you could do a lot.
Exactly, man. Imagine what we could bring in. Imagine who we could get. Imagine that we could trade for William Nylander. Just saying, there's now room to make that type of a move if you don't lock in Stamkos in his 30s with injuries and all of that. And somebody out there absolutely will give him $8 million for 4, 5, 6 years. The LA Kings love to do things like that.
We just can't I wouldn't anticipate his next contract with the Lightning or someone else for that matter being 7 or 8 years.
And again, I think he remains a Lightning. I think this gets settled at some point. I just don't see him not being a Tampa Bay Lightning. But either way, he wants a contract. They're not going to give him one now. And with the injury, as you mentioned, he's probably, I'm sure they're going to be looking at that and going, how can we take a few zeros off of this? Speaking of zeros and extensions and all of that, there have been a few. Start with the Avalanche. They handed out a big contract, 7-year contract extension to defenseman Devin Taves, $7.25 million for the deal. Thoughts, feelings?
I think it's good. It's a little bit of an overpayment. It's a little bit of an underpayment rather. It's a little bit long on term, but I think it's pretty well deserved by a player like this. He has been fantastic for the Avalanche as their top line stay-at-home defenseman while Cale Makar goes and is Cale Makar. And last year with Makar out for extended periods of time, still kind of proved that he could be an offensive threat as well. And like we said, cap going up next year, so him going from 4.1 to 7.2 probably not going to be as difficult to stomach. But yeah, this will probably be the last deal of his career, given that he's 29 right now. So definitely a good opportunity to cash in. And boy, I'd feel dumb if I got rid of him for a second round pick. That's just me.
It would, who would do such a thing? I think this is I agree with you. I think it's a good contract. The years are a little long. I mean, he's going to be 30 when the contract kicks in. So, about 5 years into this deal, it's going to be like, oof. But again, if you didn't know, the cap's going up. And with the cap going up, I think that's $7 million. I don't think it's going to hurt as much, especially considering this is your guy that you pair up with Makar. This is a guy that clearly has chemistry with him. He's a top 4 for you. He's a top 2 really for you. He can play the two-way game. He's a physical player as well. He's a good defenseman. So I like this move for the Avalanche. Years wise, I'm just never comfortable with that long of a contract for anybody that's hitting 30, just because you never know, eventually it's going to become a bad contract.
Yeah. If that ends in a buyout someday, I wouldn't be all that surprised, but he plays at a high enough level that he may see it to the end rather than this being this is the problem for the next year.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Somebody who else signed a 7-year contract extension and kind of left me going, I wonder why he signed that now. The Buffalo Sabres, man, they really locked up their core. Owen Power signed that 7-year extension. $8.35 million is what he's going to be making. He posted 35 points in 79 games during that rookie campaign last year. They had already inked Rasmus Dahlin as well, 23 to an 8-year, $88 million extension. And when oh boy, man, I'll let you go.
They're so young, too. Owen Power's 20, Rasmus Dahlin's 23. Owen Power was coming off of his entry-level deal. And I feel like this is a pretty solid move on the Sabres' part to position themselves for long-term success. If your top pairing is locked down now, or even if you're splitting them up, frankly, that's still reasonable value to get out of that. But yeah, this has a lot of great opportunity provided for it. You've definitely seen enough of Rasmus Dahlin to know that he's a real deal. It's shown a little bit of faith in Owen Power, but when a defenseman can step in and play top line minutes right away as a rookie, that's always outstandingly impressive to me. So I don't think that's too much of a risk.
I know, but it's not a risk, but it is interesting because, coming off of that entry-level deal, 20 years of age, You sign the long-term contract, so that's going to take you to about 27, 28. He'll still make a nice little penny after that as well. But I find it interesting that the Sabres would do that as opposed to looking for maybe a bridge deal or something along those lines. That they would just lock it up. But at the same time, it is a good move by the Sabres because I mentioned that core is locked up. Now, 2 defensemen locked up in their prime for a combined $19.35 million. Pretty damn good, honestly. It is a big chunk of change for those players, but it's worth it. And also, if you are the Sabres, you have now told everybody, you have made it clear to the league, Dahlin, Power, Tage, Cousins, Samuelson, that's the core. That is the core right there. Building around it. So now if you are a player and you're a free agent, you kind of see that Buffalo has something now. And what...
Yeah, you could see they're all in on this. They're serious. I would have maybe been a little bit more comfortable if they made the playoffs before doing those big extensions. But there's a good chance that if they made the playoffs this year, then they would end up paying even more for these extensions. So this could work out really
well. That's what I mean. Like, okay, handing a 20-year-old 7-year contract for $8.35 million, smart, because if he remains the player that he already showed that he was and doesn't regress back, oh my God, dude, you got him for that long at that price. That is a steal. But if he does take a regression and say maybe Owen Power takes a step back this year, and then in year 3 is kind of so-so. Now you got a guy at $8.35 million that's becoming, has fallen out of being a top 2 guy and is becoming more of maybe a bottom 6 guy. And now you're kind of stuck with that. There's that risk as well, just because he's so young, and we only saw so much that it's like, oof. Why didn't you go for the bridge deal? And also, if you're Power and you take a bridge deal of like 2 years, at 22 you sign a 6-year contract, and then you get another big extension after that. Like, I don't know. I feel like there could have been more. And again, cap's going up. I don't know if you heard. So you could have also gotten more money out of that if you had taken the bridge deal.
Yeah, and when you look around at other defensemen, like Cale Makar makes $9. And I think that
makes $9. I think Erik Karlsson is the only one that makes $12.
Yeah.
He reset the market for defensemen. Here comes Makar and Fox. I'm going to take team-friendly deals.
Quinn Hughes makes $17.
Quinn Hughes as well. I'm going to take a friendly deal for the team.
Yeah, so he's staying in that same stratosphere of them. But if you start to look at, Aaron Ekblad makes $7. Zach Werenski makes, just below $9. Like, there's a lot of players in that price point that you can point to, and it would be very reasonable to say, yeah, I'd rather have Owen.
Yes, agreed. So, all right, we got the Sabres. They're locking up their core. The New Jersey Devils, they're locking up their coach. Lindy Ruff got a multi-year extension. No additional contract details were disclosed when I read the article and jotted it. But listen, here's what I'll say to that. He earned it. The Devils players clearly love that coach. There's a reason he's one of the winningest coaches as well. And not a bad, it's smart move by the Devils. It's but talk about a total turnaround though from the fire Ruff chance to now everybody's
sorry.
Yeah, now everybody's like, they got to give him that extension. This is worth it. This was what he needed.
Yeah, and similar to Buffalo, the Devils are clearly a team that feels like they have something special here. They want to keep it locked up. They want to have some consistency at the helm there, and they just want to see how far they can ride this right now. So, solid move in my book. And anytime you talk about changing head coaches, the firing the coach is always the easy part. The real difficult decision becomes with who do you replace them with. I don't know you're getting anyone that gets something out of this team that Gerard doesn't.
All right. I didn't actually put this down because I didn't see it when I was doing the research, but I remember it happened, and we got to hit it for a quick second. So I don't have the details in front of me, but Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele re-signed with the Winnipeg Jets. 2 players, and I bring it up because it's 2 players that we felt were all but destined to be traded this year. Specifically, Hellebuck to the Devils, since they are in need of a true number 1 goalie out there.
And I would have said Scheifele to Boston. Personally.
See, okay, he definitely would have. He definitely would have gone. Any of those playoff teams would have been looking for him. There was a weird, and I was totally anti this, but there was a portion of X, formerly Twitter, where I guess there were rumors of the Rangers would have been in on him. And I don't like that.
In on Mark
Scheifele? Would have been in on Scheifele, and I'm so happy. Listen, if that's the case, I'm happy Scheifele got the extension, because as a Ranger fan, I don't want, like, Scheifele's a great player, but I don't want to give up what you're going to have to give up for him. And there would have been no room.
Well, aging veterans that are past the prime has always worked out well for the Rangers.
Hey, we got Blake Wheeler, right? Shut up. But then I'm also ecstatic that Hellebuck got signed, because now it means he's not going to be a Devil.
Yeah, or a Penguin. If you're Winnipeg, do you re-sign these guys? Because I don't know that I
wouldn't have. But Winnipeg, we talked about it last year. Winnipeg's a team that, for whatever reason, feels that they are competitive, and it's like, you're competitive because of Connor Hellebuck, who's about to be 30. You know, pretty soon the wheels of Connor Hellebuck and riding him to the postseason every year and not having success because you rode the guy to the postseason and have nothing else is finally going to fall out from underneath you, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah, the thing that stands out for me the most for them is that I don't know that they genuinely think that they're going to be competitive so much as the nature of that business being what it is, it being in a small market like that. Unless you are packing in playoff dates and getting season ticket renewals early, it would be very difficult to make a team work financially in Winnipeg there. So I especially given the letters they sent to fans last year that were borderline threatening about season ticket renewals and relocation, I think if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you are just hanging on for dear life to whatever possible value you can get out of some of these guys. Because, and especially as their general manager, Kevin Cheveldayoff, has been there since they relocated. So it's not like there's been a, long-term success that's been qualifying for that. I just think they get somebody in there that can kind of keep the ship relatively steady. Maybe you wish you didn't draft Patrick Laine, but it is what it is at this point. You have something to look forward to in Cole Perfetti, but outside of that, this is a team that is very destined to stay a bubble team.
Agreed.
And I don't know. At this point, I would have tried to blow it up.
And I'm with you. I would have tried to blow it up as well right after that first round exit last year. I would have been like, okay, it's we're listening it on Hellebuck. We're listening it on everybody who's either has an expiring contract or expiring contract next year, and I'm willing to eat some salary to move the player for you because I'm ready to commit to a form of a rebuild now. I'm ready to try and, there's no Connor Bedard or Adam Fantilli or any of that this year, but I'm still ready to do it.
And I can see a lot of parallels between the Jets and the Islanders in the sense that very goaltending dependent, hasn't had a big addition or splash here lately. The Islanders don't have an equivalent for buying out Blake Wheeler, but that's neither here nor there. And just, I don't see a ton to be excited about on this roster. And it stands out to me that Rick Bowness just absolutely ripping the team apart when they got eliminated from the playoffs. And yeah, didn't ship out a ton of people, just kind of right back here where we were. And it's like, all right, that's going to be a little awkward, but
Yeah,
have fun, I guess.
Go here. Here's a contract. Go have fun. Thanks for staying. Which also, let's talk about that. The fact that people actually wanted to stay in Winnipeg. Winnipeg and Calgary, because we saw some re-signs in Calgary as well.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Calgary possibly falling apart here, and that hasn't come to fruition there. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they got rid of their coach, but they moved out Tyler Toffoli, and that seemed to kind of be, the stopping of the bleeding for him there. They went ahead and named Michael Backlund the captain, so they are plugging right along here. I think they're just kind of hoping that Huberdeau and Kadri kind of bounce back from last year, and hey, we talked about it with that conference. Almost anything can happen at this point, so I don't think it's unreasonable to take their roster and say, yeah, we have a shot at this.
Yeah, agreed. I think they're a bubble team as well because of that. So, all right. I didn't jot down any other of the extensions. So really, I guess there's a few other things on the sheet that we can talk about. We didn't get to talk about Babcock. Do you have any thoughts about that? Because we weren't. So many. We weren't recording. So we were all over the place, sick, working, all of that stuff. Which kind of, because that was going to be the episode that we were going to come back. That was going to be our big, hey, we're back episode. Yeah. And then I got super sick, and then you were working and stuff like that, and then my communication skills turned into shit for a hot minute as well. And
yeah, I wish there was like a class you could take on something like that, or just like maybe one class wouldn't be sufficient. Just like an entire focus, concentrated degree on communicating. I would get into that.
Listen, even if you have a degree in it, the one thing about the communications people is we suck at communicating.
Don't we all? I've been bad the last couple of weeks too, but partially just processing this Mike Babcock information.
Yeah.
Let's blame him for this.
He saw your phone. All right.
Yeah. For those that are unaware, that Mike Babcock had a lot of things come out about him after he was fired in Toronto. Just borderline abusive to players in Detroit, in Toronto, in Anaheim. Weird mind games that he would play with, scratching Chris Chelios for the outdoor game in his hometown, scratching Mike Modano to prevent him from getting to play 1,500 career games. Just a all around, just not even something that you're getting something out of with all of this stuff. Just a genuinely not good human being. And so it came out for the Blue Jackets that part of his way of getting to know people was to take their phone, hook it up to a airdrop on a TV, and just kind of go through their pictures a little bit, which in his defense would be an awfully effective way to get to know somebody. And when you're Boone Jenner or Johnny Gaudreau or some of these other guys that are older with families, maybe there's not as much stuff on your phone that you're uncomfortable sharing. But as it came out that this was something that happened that really bothered a lot of younger players, the union really stepped in to really get to the bottom of it, figure out the extent of it, and the Blue Jackets ended up parting ways with Mike Babcock.
And my thoughts on it are just, I'm not really that shocked. I'm not that shocked. Like, you're an idiot. That's for sure. Mike Babcock's an idiot because you come back, everybody isn't really convinced that you learned from what got you, fired and expelled from the NHL for a while, and you're under a microscope, and the first thing you do is, before the season even begins, you're like, yeah, give me your phone. Show me your phone. And yeah, like you said, for the veteran guys, the Boone Jenners and Gaudreaus, yeah, you're, older. You've got family. You're not a young 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kid. I wouldn't want anybody going through my phone at that age and looking at my pictures because, yeah, you don't know what the hell is in there. And especially, if you're a young single hockey player athlete out there, pretty sure they've got some specific pictures that they'd like to send to the girls they meet on Tinder in whatever city they're staying in.
Yeah, and so a young soon-to-be millionaire probably has some things on his phone that guys like you and I might have had at that age. Yeah, I wouldn't be all that because the first time I heard about this, I said, this is really stupid, and I
actually didn't even believe it at first. I was like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
No way this guy has to see people's phones.
There's no way he screwed up.
If you had told me that he had kicked one of the players already, I totally believe it. But there's no way this guy was like, coming to my house. I'm gonna feed you.
I thought this would be an urban.
Come over for lunch.
I thought this would be an Urban Meyer situation, not a not just Babcock playing mind game situation.
Yeah. I mean, shit. He did play mind games. He was like, "I'm gonna feed you guys," and then there was no food.
Yeah, there was a story from one rookie who was invited to Mike Babcock's house for lunch. Mike Babcock got his phone, went through it a little bit, and told him to leave, and he didn't even get lunch.
Fuck, man. Like, so I'd be more pissed about that. I'd be like, wait a minute, did he just look through my phone? Wait a minute, I was promised lunch. What the fuck?
and the more I thought about it, like, yeah, I would probably feel comfortable telling somebody no, because I have like a super established HR department that's going to have my back. And even then it wouldn't be something like embarrassingly sexual that my boss would find. They'd just be like, can you explain this meme about communism? So like, yeah, career wise, not the best move for me to have my phone out in the open. But when there's a power dynamic like that, when this person can, hold your entire career in the palm of his hand. I mean, ask Akeem Alou what it was like having Bill Peters and these guys tell him that he was a bad seed and that teams shouldn't sign him. He barely got a chance to play in the NHL when he probably could have had a lot more of a career like that. So you are not really in a position to tell your head coach no for something like that. So I'm glad that the younger players were able to speak up for it. I'm glad that, the union with new leadership was able to make an example out of somebody early on. And my prediction for all of this is the general manager and president of hockey operations that said it was a good idea to take a risk in bringing in Mike Babcock are also going to get let go, but they're going to wait a couple months first so it doesn't look like it's directly connected to it.
Okay, I was going to ask about that because I couldn't believe that JD and Jarmo were safe after that, and that everybody was like, no, they're good. Because I felt like, well, at that point, you kind of got to like clean house because these are the two that were like, no, you have to hire him. He's totally like... And they didn't do their due diligence, and it bit them in the ass right away. But I do see...
Oh, no, they did their due diligence. Everyone knew that this was going to be controversial. Everyone knew they were going to be under a microscope from day one of this. This was pre-day one. They didn't even get to the first day of the season. They knew. They didn't care.
And here's the thing. I actually think that there is a path for both of them to still be there at the end of the season. And it is Columbus overachieving a little bit, which could happen with Fantilli. He could help them overachieve a bit. And no other form of controversies. Like, it needs to be a very smooth rest of the year with a little bit of, we did a little bit better than we thought. We thought we were going to really struggle this year, but we ended up getting a lot out of this team. Fantilli was a great pick. What's next? So I could weirdly see them sticking around, and honestly believe that they are going to stick around from this. But you mentioned really quickly the work done by the union and the NHL PA and all of that and all of that stuff. I love how quickly they reacted on that. You got new people in there, and they came around, and they very quickly kind of were like, this isn't going to be the same old bullshit. We're kind of done with the same old. Like, we're not doing that. Like, well, it's nope. We're coming full blown. If you mess up, we're coming after you. And that is a nice way to start. Now, will they continue doing that? That's the question, but it's a nice way when you're coming off of all the stuff that has just happened and the lack of punishment for things like people being sexually assaulted. It's nice to see a change of pace of like, no, people are being held accountable. But again, does that stick around, or do we end up back in the same old?
Well, and this was something I kind of skipped over for this, but I'm glad you brought it back up to the union, because I think the Players Association was a little, I don't know if upset is the word, but I don't know if it quite rises to the level of embarrassment with the way that the story got out. And that was through Paul Bissonnette, who I do not care very much for at all as a broadcaster or just as a human being. But, credit where credit is due. He was the person that really broke this story, talked about how messed up it was. And when the Blue Jackets came out and denied it, and when senior Blue Jackets players said it was blown out of proportion, he stuck to his guns and said, no, like, this is messed up and this shouldn't be happening, sort of thing. And so I think the union was especially anxious to act on that, especially with new leadership, just to kind of say, hey, players in general, you can come to us with stuff like this. We're not fucking around when it comes to stuff like this. So I think that's probably going to be something that benefits players in the long run, especially if they continue to want to kind of have that perception and have that message out there. Touching on Jarmo again for a second. Dude's been GM of this team since 2013. He hasn't had a lot of success to talk about.
No, he won a playoff series.
Yeah, he did preside over the most successful year in Blue Jackets history, but setting the bar, So it's tough to say if this is something that would bring him down, or if ownership is so hands off that as long as they can just have someone consistent that they can trust, that they know is going to do good things for the team, good enough things for the team, and most importantly, make them money, then maybe that's why something like this sticks around. But I don't know. I think that I wouldn't be all that surprised if come December or January they both get let go and they just say, well, the on-ice success and this, that, and the other and lack thereof sort of thing.
You think they do it mid-season and not at the end of the season?
Well, yeah, you don't want someone making a whole bunch of trades at the trade deadline for you that isn't going to be around, and you certainly don't want someone running your scouting meetings. That's true. Good point. If you're already planning on getting rid of them and just giving a little bit of time for appearances' sake here. But I'm also curious what this is like in the locker room for the Blue Jackets when you have Boone Jenner and Johnny Gaudreau and these elder statesmen, kind of come out and say this wasn't a big deal. Just speculating on who some of these younger guys that were really bothered by this could have been. Pure speculation here. Adam Fantilli, Kent Johnson, Cole Sillinger, not Elvis Merzlikins necessarily, but Zach Werenski's only 26. There's a number of different players that could have been really uncomfortable in this situation, or it could have just been guys that are still in the minors at this point that would have been like, oh, thanks for having my back for this when I thought this was a big deal and you decided to come out and say that it wasn't. Cool. Don't have to see you every day. That won't be awkward. So I do wonder if this is going to have a little bit of a rift in the Columbus locker room. But regardless for a team that has just never had any type of sustained success, that has to throw a party anytime they sign a high-profile free agent, just the continued embarrassments piling up in Columbus. You kind of
it's a little upsetting because I still haven't been to a game there, but I've seen the area. It's definitely one of those places where I'm like that. If they could have some form of sustained success, that could be a really fun place to make party.
Yeah, for sure.
And you could pee on the logos of teams you don't like there.
Hey, man! At February 25th, you will know where to find me.
I know. All right. I guess one of the last things, because this episode's kind of going a little bit longer than I actually thought it was going to go.
Me too.
I guess the last thing that we both definitely felt the need to bring up is no more Pride tape. I mean, we already knew that they were getting rid of the warm-ups and all of that. No more for anything. But now Pride tape has been banned by the NHL as well.
What the fuck, man?
It's such a stupid decision. It's so dumb, and it's as two guys that fuck, man. When we did this show as a 757 2-man advantage, had You Can Play on. It's such a we had Burke on to talk about it and the meaning of it, and it was already a step back with the no more jerseys, but this just feels excessive.
The thing I keep coming back to for a lot of this is if this was the NBA or the NFL or even the MLB, I would think would be prone to do something like this. If they came out and said you couldn't, have something for warm-ups that's, completely inconsequential to the game or something like that, how many players are going out and doing it the very next opportunity they have? Just because the league told them they couldn't. Was it 20? Is it 40? Like, realistically, if it was the NBA, the entire league might go out and start doing it. And so I'm almost a little disappointed that no one has put Pride tape on for warm-ups and just kind of said, all right, do something about it.
Yeah.
Because realistically, when you have a union and so many of your rules are collectively bargained, this is more you asking the players than telling the players. And how the conversation for a lot of this is focused around, is this ban even enforceable?
Yeah, I don't know if it is.
And it doesn't. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people think it is either. Yeah. So it is, I don't know, man. It's just, of all the things to do, and I'm curious to see where the union ends up coming with this, because obviously there's going to be there's been players that have already voiced concerns about this and said this doesn't make any sense, that, hey, come Pride Night, I'm going to, have tape on my stick anyway. But there's probably also a lot of players that really got irritated with fans like us that would go through photos and say, oh, this person didn't wear the warm-up jersey. Oh, this person didn't express support for this sort of thing. So it's hard to figure out the best way to find a middle ground for something like that. And when it became, for us last year, when it became more about the players that didn't participate than the players that did, it really took away a lot from the message. Outright banning it will take away a lot from the message as well. But I heard, I think it was Elliot Friedman floated this idea that I really like, to have something similar to the NFL where there's 1 or 2 nights a year where your jersey can say "He hate me," or just like a whole bunch of just opportunities to express oneself. If that was when you started to have stuff like that, instead of forced, or not forced, but a compulsory Pride nights or stick tapes or things like that, then the message becomes more meaningful and players still get a chance to express themselves. I just don't know what happens when a Russian player has a stick taped up like the Russian flag while the Ukraine invasion's happening, if you decide to go that route. But I guess that's a climb that hill when you come to it.
Yeah, sort of thing. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It was just 10 steps backwards by a league that traditionally always kind of does this type of stupid, and they just didn't let us down by being stupid again.
Yeah. And honestly, if you want to keep your eye on a player that I would most likely expect to really have something to say about it that we haven't heard from yet is Tyler Seguin, who kneeled during the anthem in 2020, who spent a lot of time really trying to get to know the Black Lives Matter movement and educate himself about issues related to it. I would not be surprised to see him taking a stand on something at some point, but that might be putting him on a pedestal a little bit too.
Yeah, it would, but I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully some players out there do it just to kind of test it, and then I guess we will find out where the Players Association and the union and all that stands on it. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't like it. I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me, and players want to put pride tape on, like whatever. I understood. And I was accepting of we're getting rid of all the warm-up jersey stuff. But by getting rid of the pride tape, it all feels hollow now. Like it's...
And you would think you could trust a group of adults to express themselves in a way that wasn't going to embarrass the league.
No.
And just the... And you could at least stand behind the veneer of we're, protecting individuals, right to choose with something. I could buy into that a little bit. We'll say, well, yeah, someone should feel comfortable dissenting, even if I don't agree with it, sort of thing. But now it's just swung so far the other way that now you're telling players what they can't do. And I don't understand how the idea that doing this is going to upset the league didn't result in a whole bunch of players suddenly turning around and doing it immediately, regardless of the message.
I don't know, man. It was dumb. That's for sure. That's where I stand on it. It was dumb. It was stupid.
Controversial position for us to take.
Stupid league. I want my rainbow flag tape. That was also what I was going to say. I forgot who it was because I've seen some people, do that, like, a bunch of people that didn't wear it because they're anti, and I'm like, and I couldn't remember who it was, but who was the Russian player that finally spoke up and was like, you know what, F Putin and F this anti-LGBT stance of our nation, like actually had where I was like, what is he doing? Like, he is putting his whole family at risk. Did he get everybody out of Russia already? Because that was also why I was willing to accept all right, all of them are gone. No warm-up jerseys. But I thought that there would still be your choice to actually, partake.
The player you're thinking about that had the gall to criticize Putin is Nikita
There you go.
Zadorov
We all should get that jersey.
for the Flames.
Remember how everybody was like, let's get a Provorov jersey. No, let's get that jersey.
Yeah.
So, all right. That was kind of all I got. Is there anything else you wanted to hit this week?
No, that's pretty much it for me.
Good show. Good welcome back. Good time to be back. There's going to be a lot of fun takes. I'm looking forward to the season. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it.
Season 2, baby. Let's go.
All right. Where can we find you these days, Shad?
I am still on X, formerly known as Twitter, as every passive-aggressive news reader likes to call it. I think the last time I logged into it before today was for our previous show, so I haven't done much on it. But I am at JTEvans0.
And I am still on X, formerly Twitter as well, wonderful_radio. And you can find me on Thread still, Nick Wonderful. That is also my Instagram, where I share the show as well. So, all right. Until next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.